Welcome to my secret channel, Emerald, where I ramble about whatever I feel like in the laziest format possible. A certain scientific railgun, the Jailbreaker arc, the arc that finished in the manga not that long ago. I finally finished it because, I wait for the volumes to come out because I just really like reading like physical manga. I had to actually read the last few chapters online because they weren't included in this latest volume, which is unfortunate. But I mean, it would have been a very large volume if they did. But as I was reading it on the screen, bro, it just hurts my eyes. I don't know, something about reading manga like plays with my eyes. I really don't like it. But that's okay, because it doesn't change how much I really enjoyed it. But before I start talking about it, I want to say a few things first. As a little sappy thing to say, I kind of just want to say thank you to the Toaru community, the Toaru fans out there. Now, I'm not really a Toaru YouTuber per se, but it is the series that on both of my channels is definitely the series that I have discussed the most. And on my main channel, I have made a lot of Toaru related covers and stuff. And I guess you could say it's the community, if you want to put it that way, that I've involved myself with the most. And I just want to say thank you for watching these videos. Especially on this channel, I made 2 videos about Toaru, one about Index and one about Railgun. And I made this channel with quite literally 1 subscriber, and that 1 subscriber was myself, my other account, where I just turned notifications on to see if they worked. But the fact that one of my Index video at this point, it's got like 200 views on a channel that I don't promote to any extent, that I made with practically no subscribers whatsoever, to me is kind of crazy. And some people actually watched that video and left some like very insightful comments, seemed to enjoy it and listen to the whole thing, which I was kind of surprised about. And on my main channel, of course, kind of whenever I have made something Toaru related, it just kind of got more views, and I upload stuff and I see this very active, very dedicated little following that this little series has. I know Toaru is considered to be a lot bigger in Japan, but like the international community, like especially here, in the West in America, or just English speaking countries, Toaru is a relatively obscure series. And to see that it has this passionate, like dedicated following that's just really into this series and seeks out content for it, it's a very cool thing to see. Toaru for the Western community it's a pretty underground series. I don't know very many people that are really fans of the series or have ever even heard of the series. And the fact that if I make something Toaru related, it's just more likely to get noticed, it seems like. It just seems like this community is just really hungry for content about this series. There are very few content creators out there that specifically talk about Toaru. The only Toaru specific channels that I know of I only know of 2 of them personally, Toonie and Aeon of Horus, and they're both like relatively small, around I think both of them have around 2 to 3K subscribers. I mean, you compare that to like the ReZero community, which has like a Kidnut who's got like over 100,000. Obviously, I don't even need to mention the shonen channels out there that all have hundreds of thousands of subscribers, but we are quite the small community here. I mean, I'm not saying I am a Toaru YouTuber, but it's most definitely the community that I've involved myself with the most. And I don't know, I just kind of felt a little bit of appreciation for the community. It's a very nice group of people that we have, I think. So to anyone that watched my Index Railgun video or watches any of my covers that I made on my main channel, I just want to say thank you. I don't get a ton of comments on these videos, so of course I do read all of them, and I just want to say that I appreciate the Toaru fans out there that just actively are seeking out Toaru content. I think it's really cool, and thank you for watching these silly, pointless ramblings. And shout out to the other people just making Toaru related videos. I do know that I think both Toonie and Aeon, of course, did already make videos about the Jailbreaker arc, but I mean, I just finished it, okay? So cut me some slack. I'm late, I know, but I'm gonna talk about it pretty, I guess, as in depth as I can. And if you're new to this channel, I guess what to expect is I don't really make analytical videos. I talk about my experiences and my observations, and it's somewhat analytical. It's somewhat just me talking about my own subjective experiences and feelings on whatever it is I'm talking about. And of course, feel free to tell me what you think about the Jailbreaker arc in the comments. I do read them, of course. I respond to them. Unless I just don't know what to say. If you leave a comment and I just have no idea what to say, that's the only reason I wouldn't respond. It's just because I don't know what exactly to say. But I always make sure to, like, love the comment, press the heart, right? So at least you are acknowledged, that I'm not just leaving you there to hang. But anyways, 6 minutes in, I should start talking about the Jailbreaker arc. So let me kind of mention the fact that I already made a video about all of Railgun. So if you want to hear me talk about all of these stuff before Jailbreaker, I guess you would probably want to watch my, rambling about Railgun video. As a precursor, Railgun is my favorite manga series. I don't read a ton of manga. I have watched a ton of anime, but it is regardless my favorite manga. If you want the absolute most TLDR statement about the Jailbreaker arc that I can possibly give you, I will just say I really liked it, and I thought it was another really solid arc for the Railgun manga. I don't think that there is a single bad arc in this series. I think it is just an outstanding series. I loved a lot of the themes that were present in this arc. I loved a lot of the characters that were introduced, and I generally thought it was a fairly outstanding arc. I do have some complaints, but they're not really major complaints in my opinion. Nothing that just ruins my opinion of Railgun. Oh no, there was one bad part in one arc, the whole series is ruined. No, I'm not about that. But yeah, that's my long story short, if that's all you wanted to hear for some reason. Anyways, so I want to say that reading this arc was a bit different for me, because I think this was the first time I ever actually read a manga arc as it was going on, kind of, and actually technically took me like over a year or like multiple years to finish, because it wasn't all out when I started reading it. I started reading Railgun early 2019, and like I said earlier, I like to read the physical manga. So I, ordered all those as they were coming out. The new ones, of course. So I think, I can't remember. I think 14, which was the first arc, or the first volume of Jailbreaker, was the first one I had to wait for to come out. Or it might have just come out once I caught up with the Railgun manga. And then I had to wait a pretty long time, what felt like a long time, for volume 15 to come out, and then I had to wait what felt like a lifetime for volume 16 to come out. It felt forever. It felt like it took forever. I almost just read it all online. I'm glad I didn't, though, because then I would have had to wait, months. I'd have to wait a month every time for a new chapter to come out. That sounds terrible. For those people out there that read Attack on Titan monthly ever since it started running, I don't know how you did it. I don't know how you did it. That sounds insane to me. Waiting a whole month for something that you can read in like 10-ish minutes, 10 to 20 minutes, however long it takes you to read a chapter. To get to the point though, this arc was a bit weird for me in just how I read it, because I had to wait long periods of time for the volumes to come out. And so in that sense, it was kind of staggered, and I'm not really a fan of that. I really like to just read it all in one go. But that still didn't really stop just how much I really did enjoy this arc. And I want to say, I think I did hear some people say that they weren't super huge into this arc, that they thought it was mediocre or below standards for Railgun, or was, kind of problematic after a certain point, which I mostly disagree with. But let's start at the beginning. So volume 14, when they introduce the premise, pretty much. So I want to say one thing that Toaru always nails is Toaru is just filled with really like fun, interesting ideas that often play a part in the world building to some extent. And I really like the premise of this arc, or just how the arc started. So with the whole idea about this new prison being created, just completely state-of-the-art, top-of-the-line, super high-budget prison that is supposed to be completely inescapable. It's supposed to be impossible for even level 5s to break out of this prison, to break in or to break out of this prison. And they were so confident in this that they decided to quite literally hold a contest to see that if anyone could break in or if anyone could like break into the prison and like free the prisoners there or whatever, then they would be paid a large sum of money, because that's just how confident they were that this prison was impenetrable. I think that's a pretty fun setup. And you know what? I think Volume 14 was just a very fun, pretty laid back setup for this arc. And I kind of liked it because after the serious moments of Railgun, I really like the lighthearted moments as well. In my Railgun video, I talked about why I liked Season 1 of Railgun, even though it was mostly filler, because I really like the lighthearted nature, and I love slice of life. And Railgun 1 was very slice of life inspired, even though it had this very ambitious setting and world and power system and blah, blah, blah. And in the beginning of Jailbreaker, it feels lighthearted and fun, also involving this fairly interesting premise, and it's a little bit fan servicey in my opinion, a mostly good way, because it brings back a lot of characters that we've seen in the past. So Scavenger was there, and Dolly, and I think Mitri was there as well. And of course, besides, the 4 main girls from Railgun, it also had, like Congo and some others, right? So I think really this part of the arc was just supposed to be fun and laid back, and I think it was. There was some pretty good comedic moments, and it was just, I guess, it was a pretty easy, fun, enjoyable read, especially if you just enjoy the cast of Railgun, which I do. And I uploaded a video. It should be my last video from this one, about my favorite cast in anime, and the Toaru franchise is most definitely my favorite cast in anime. So, of course, that alone just makes this really enjoyable for me. I can enjoy just the Railgun characters. They could be in one singular room for a whole episode just talking about random garbage, and I would still enjoy it, probably. But to move forward a little bit, it's pretty much mostly lighthearted fun, like I said, for a good number of chapters. And then I guess the competition ends around the end of Volume 14 with, who would have guessed, Uiharu winning the whole contest because she's just crazy hacker girl. And that ends up being an extremely important part of this, is Uiharu's hacking abilities. Because then we find out that this whole entire thing was set up so that they could, they're not really an organization, but I guess if you want to call them this, the antagonistic group of this arc could essentially kidnap Uiharu and use her so they could complete their objective. And their objective is something I will talk as we get farther into this. So Volume 14 ends with Uiharu winning the competition, breaking out the prisoners, and I believe she ended up donating all the money to a charity. What a good person she is. But besides that, at the end is revealed to us that this whole thing was set up pretty much so they could break out the main antagonist of this arc, whose name is Kimi, who, by the way, was not designed by Kiyotaka Haimura, who is most definitely my favorite character designer in anime. Something about Haimura's designs speak to me, and that man has made so many of my favorite designs. But this design was actually made by, I believe, someone named Matsu Ryu. This is just in the back of the volume. I don't know who this is. This is probably like another manga artist, unless this was translated incorrectly. I believe this person designed Kimi, and I really like Kimi's design. Kimi's design grew on me quite a lot. Whenever someone else designs the characters, I'm a little sussy. I'm a little skeptical, because I think someone else designed the Scavenger characters, and I will be real, I don't like any of Scavenger's designs. I don't hate Scavenger as an organization, but I do not like Scavenger's designs, and I think it's pretty clear that Haimura did not design them. I don't remember who it was, but I do remember seeing on Twitter that it was someone else. So anyways, this whole contest was pretty much set up basically as a way to break out Shundan Kimi, who I'm just going to call Kimi because that's easier to say and it's cooler to say, out of prison, and we learn why that is later. Right off the bat, I want to talk about the antagonistic group of this arc because I really like them. They really grew on me. So there's essentially 4 of them, and there's Kimi, the main antagonist. There is Raifu. Oh my goodness, I love her name because it's waifu with an R. There is Tsurigane, and there is Suzu. At first, I wasn't too into them, I guess you could say, other than Raifu, just because I think Raifu is the cutest thing ever. But these characters really grew on me, and they all kind of represented something thematically pretty interesting. Especially Raifu, actually. She surprised me because I actually thought she was pretty interestingly written. And she was not as shallow as I was kind of expecting her to be. So, you know what? I've been talking as if people haven't read this already, but anyone watching this has clearly already read the arc, and if you haven't, you probably shouldn't be watching this video. I'm sorry. But I'm going to go ahead and just like talk more broadly about the arc. So let's, like I said, go ahead and talk about the antagonists. So in volume 15, which I want to say I loved volume 15 so much. I think volume 15 might be one of, if not my favorite volume in the Railgun manga. I think that the fight choreography in volume 15 was just completely outstanding. I'm mostly talking about the fight between Kuroko and Surigane, but I also thought the fight with Mikoto and Raifu was really good as well. And I'm gonna make a statement. I'm gonna make a bold claim. I'm gonna say that Jailbreaker by far has the best fight choreography in all of Railgun. All of the fights, in my opinion, were so well thought out. There were interesting matchups. It was very detailed. It was easy to tell what was going on, which is a problem I often have with manga, where I'm reading a fight and I literally don't know what's happening because it's just not presented in a clear enough way. But with Railgun, I don't really have that issue, especially in this arc. There were a lot of like big brain keikakus, and overall, I just thought everything was just, in terms of the fight, was just very well done. I was surprised because I'll be real, I'm not that much of a fight choreography guy. See, to me, with the fight, I care more if a fight has like good character writing or if there's some sort of like progression. Like one thing I really like about Bleach, I mentioned Bleach in so many of these videos, but one thing I like about Bleach fights is that they usually have a lot of like great character writing in those fights. Like the fights are used as tools for the characters to develop in some way or talk about some interesting theme. But if you're not going to have that, which I think there's still a decent amount of in this arc, but if you're not going to have that, then the fight choreography needs to be really interesting, which I actually believe it was here. And I am going to say, I probably have a lot of bias, but the fight with Kuroko and Surigane is probably one of my favorite fights in anime and manga. I just enjoy it so much. I obviously have a lot of Kuroko bias. My PFP on almost every single social media platform is Kuroko Shirai. Yes, I still plan to make that video about her, I swear. But truly, I just thought the fight was really well written, and I thought it was very well thought out. I loved the atmosphere. I thought it did a great job of involving the environment. I thought, everything was like foreshadowed properly. The characters fighting were a really good, interesting matchup for each other to fight. It wasn't just, I guess I'm not a huge fan of just fights where it turns into just overpowering the other person. Like, oh, they get super motivated and hyped, and now they're just suddenly super strong and super fast, and now they're winning the fight, and it's really hype. No, I think this one was a lot more strategic. And it brings out the absolute best in Kuroko Shirai. Even if you don't really like Kuroko, I think there's a good chance you will like her in this fight, because this is judgment mode Kuroko. This is the Kuroko that a lot of people wish we could just have 24/7. But Kuroko here shows like just how calculative of a person and how serious of a person she actually can be. And I've said it before in some other videos, I love characters that can balance comedic relief and their, more serious side, and that's why I like Kuroko so much. That's, to sum it all up in one sentence, that's why I like Kuroko so much, is because I think she's a great balance of comedic relief and, some sense of seriousness and, let me say some pretentious, thematic value. Yeah, that's basically, to sum it up in the most reductive way possible, that is why I do love Kuroko Shirai so much. She is my second favorite character of all time, only behind Lelouch. But yeah, here she really does show just how calculative she actually is when she fights, and it's just super sick. But not to just make this the Kuroko show, because I think Tsurigane plays a large part in why this fight is so interesting too. Tsurigane is pretty much just sick in the head. So a large part of Surigane's character is that she believes that she deserves the right to choose how she dies. She says her philosophy or belief is that if we can't choose how we're born, at the very least, we should be able to choose how we die. And it gets kind of graphic because, like, mid-fight with Kuroko, she explains that she wants to be decapitated. And I think specifically later she mentions she wants to be beheaded by Omi, who is another character that was introduced in Volume 14 that I did not mention. As a brief note, I will say I wish Omi was a little bit more proactive in this arc, because I really like her. I like her design. I like the fact she's like a 30-something-year-old woman and like this lolly body or whatever. And for some reason, I'm that person that enjoys the 1,000-year-old lolly stereotype, right? That trope. I, for some reason, inherently enjoy those characters. But Omi, I just thought was a pretty funny character, funny, enjoyable character that I want to know more about. I think she's in the novels. I know, I haven't read New Testament. I really want to. I'm sorry. But to get back on track, Tsurigane, so she specifically wants to be like beheaded by Omi. And I'm looking at it right now. She actually imagines what it would look like in her head, and it's shown in one of these panels, and they just straight up show her with her head cut off. I really like the fact that they went that far with it. And I also want to point out, as I'm looking at it, I really like the art in this whole fight. I really like how, well, obviously in terms of just like how they portrayed the choreography and, how I know what's going on and stuff, but it's also, they just kind of nailed this sort of dark forest atmosphere that I really like. You can really tell what it probably looks like as they're fighting. So yeah, props to Fuyukawa, Motoi Fuyukawa. If you really look at the art in the Railgun manga now and what it was early on, it's very different. And I think it's improved a lot over time. I think Fuyukawa's art has gotten really, really good over time. Now, I have no artistic ability when it comes to drawing whatsoever, so I have a really hard time like critiquing or judging other people's art, because I frankly just don't know how. But I mean, just as a consumer on a surface level, I enjoy looking at the art, and I think that's really what it comes down to. But to get back to Tsurigane, as a character, she's just kind of sick in the head. And once we learn the backstory of the antagonistic group in this arc, it becomes pretty clear, or I guess it's kind of justified, why the characters are kind of as demented as they are. And this is just something that Toaru does that I really love. Toaru does a great job of writing like psychologically warped characters that are kind of like justified in their upbringing or maybe their involvement with an experiment. And I will get into that backstory momentarily. I want to talk a little bit more about some of the stuff that went down here. I guess to wrap up that little part about the fight, I just want to say I loved it. I thought it was a fantastic fight, and this fight just lives rent-free in my head. I know a lot of it might be my bias for this series and my bias for Kuroko as a character, but even apart from that, I think a lot of people that don't like Kuroko are going to enjoy this fight because I just think it's genuinely well written and interesting. And I want to know what you guys think watching. What did you think about this fight? So to backpedal a little bit, let's talk a little bit about the Mikoto and Raifu fight. I just want to say, so I've actually mentioned this in a number of my videos, but I really like Raifu and her theme, like the themes that she discusses. She talks a lot about like hero culture, and I've mentioned in a number of videos how much I hate hero culture, how much I really don't like the pursuit of being a hero, and you know, kind of why I don't really like things like like My Hero Academia or kind of One Punch Man. Yeah, I know One Punch Man is a parody, but it's still hero culture. That doesn't really change. Either way, so yeah, I've talked about how I don't like hero culture. I don't like the pursuit of being a hero. I think it's kind of self-righteous and usually just rubs me the wrong way. But Raifu talks a lot about this, and I really like that. I actually think Kazuma Kamachi, I really like when he talks about this because he doesn't write just like generic hero wannabe characters. The closest one I can think of is Guna, but I wouldn't even say Guna could be reduced to a character like that. But I mentioned in my Index video, or was it my Railgun video? I don't remember. But like, none of the Toaru protagonists view themselves as being heroes, and I really like that a lot. Mikoto outright denies the idea of being a hero. Accelerator straight up thinks of himself as a villain, and Toma says he pretty much does not care for the idea of heroes, to give you the little TLDR on that, I guess. But Raifu, regardless, interprets Mikoto as a hero. So I actually think I'm going to read a little part of the manga here, just, I guess, in case you don't remember exactly. But so when Raifu is basically about to fight Mikoto, she says, "I'm only interested in fighting heroes who protect everyone. I don't remember when it started, but I'm fascinated by the existence of heroes. It's not that I admire them or anything. I'm just genuinely curious about why they do what they do. Humans who are evil act on their own desires, so why do heroes act contrary to their instincts?" Then she asks, is it because they want to justify their use of violence? Is it to earn praise and approval? Or have they been brainwashed to believe self-sacrifice is noble? I like this. I like this a lot. I really enjoy when anime makes you question things that you kind of think are just obvious, but you don't actually think about on like a daily basis. Or makes you question something that you would never have really thought to question in the first place. And you know, she's not really wrong when she talks about the fact that it's technically more logical to be a villain because villains very blatantly act on their own desires, whereas heroes don't. So from a purely personal standpoint, yeah, if you were just the most narcissistic person in the world, then of course being a villain is the most logical choice. You just simply act on your own desires. But in reality, the answer to this is if everyone in society were to just simply follow their own desires and become a villain because of that, then society wouldn't be able to function whatsoever. There would be no society. You can't actually have a society if you don't have a group of people that at least agree on some fundamental premises, or fundamental concepts, I should say. It's interesting to think from her perspective, because from her perspective, being a villain is just the logical choice to make because you have a motive for your actions. Your motive is to fulfill your own selfish desires. And she believes that, in that sense, it's illogical to be a hero. But like I mentioned earlier, if you just simply act on your own desires and you do act as a villain, then if everyone did that, then we couldn't have a functioning society. Meaning to have, this is a rabbit hole, but meaning to have a functioning society, We have to have people that, from her perspective, act illogically for the so-called collective greater good. I'm not sure why I enjoy this so much, but I really love just thinking about characters' psychologies and their like themes they discuss and represent, and like trying to understand a character's worldview. Because I don't know, something about it's just interesting to me. Because even though her worldview is warped, it's still interesting to think how someone like this views the world. I mean, it may seem silly to other people. I frankly just interests me. I think it's fascinating to talk about or to ponder. But yeah, for me, Raifu was a character that surprised me because honestly, when she was introduced, I thought that she was just going to be this super cute, clumsy girl that is kind of comedic relief. She's kind of just, I don't know, maybe she's just insane or strong or whatever for no reason. But she actually, I don't know, she got me to start thinking about stuff. I don't know, that's what I like about this style of character writing. Maybe I sound a little crazy or wacky here, but I'm just saying what's on my mind at this point. But I guess to move a little bit in a different direction, the fight with Mikoto, I'm not going to break it down or anything. I enjoyed the fight. I thought it was a fun, well thought out fight. And again, I like the fight choreography. Not as much as the Kuroko Surigane fight, but hey, I thought it was still really, really good. I thought all the fights in this arc were really solid, really well thought out. To backtrack a little bit more, I think I mentioned earlier, but Uiharu, of course, was kidnapped by Kimi, blah, 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 and she was taken to this facility, and there was this really funny scene with Saten where there was like this like explosion or whatever happened, and like the police or whoever they were showed up, and Saten lied and said that it was her that did it so she could get arrested. It was funny because she was just like basically annoying the people that were interrogating her, and then eventually she just said, oh, you know what, now that I think about it, I don't think I actually did do it. 10 out of 10 character. So now that I've discussed those two fights, I want to talk about the backstory with Kimi, Raifu, Tsurigane, Suzu, and there was another character that is not currently alive, Hanukkah. So I, again, really liked the backstory. They were actually involved in the Dark May project, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, and they were all child errors. So this is what Railgun is just, I think, so good about. Just Toaru in general. I really love, every single time, I love to see these backstories with these characters that were mistreated and essentially became villains or were driven to do bad things because of their unwilling involvement or manipulation into taking part in these experiments or living in these like research facilities for power development or for some scientific experiment or whatever it may be. Just at its core, this is what I enjoy so much about Toaru and Railgun. I love the discussion of just corrupt anyone, corrupt politicians, corrupt scientists that just take things too far and seeing the negative impacts because of that. Most of the villains, it seems like, in Toaru are, or at least let me just specifically talk about Railgun here, but a lot of the villains or antagonists, I guess I should say instead, in Railgun are antagonists because they have some sort of trauma that was undealt with in the past. Typically because they were they were a part of some experiment or corrupt facility, you know. For example, we have obviously these characters here. A very good example was Mitari from the Daihase arc. Mitari was driven to essentially commit acts of terrorism directly as a result of what she was involved with. If you've read Astral Buddy, I think those characters are also good examples, which I do need to make that Astral Buddy video. I want to read it again from the beginning once the last volume comes out, but unfortunately, physically, the last volume will not come out until August, which is unfortunate. I think the E version of it is either already out or about to come out, but I like I said, I just don't want to read on the screen. I've already read Astro Buddy, all right? If I'm going to read it again, I want to read it physically. So, but yeah, if you've read Astro Buddy, the characters in that, a lot of them are, like I said, they become antagonistic because of pretty much as a result of their involvement with a wicked experiment that was going on, or project, I guess I should say. Not all of them, though. It is important to note that not all of them turn out bad because of that. Overall, I just love to see Railgun explore the psychological traumas of characters and, you know, explain why it is the way they are. And it's something that I think the series does extremely well. I feel like there aren't too many characters in Toaru that are crazy just for the sake of being crazy. They're usually all justifiable in some way, mostly through backstories. But to get back on track, so yeah, basically the backstory with the characters I mentioned earlier, they were part of the Dark May, I believe it was the Dark May project. They were all originally child errors that lived in this orphanage, and they were all kind of tight-knit, and there was this character named Hanukkah that played a bit of this kind of leadership role. Maybe that's not the kind of big sister role. There was another big sister role sort of character, Suzu, who was the oldest, but she had to move out. So the responsibility moved to Hanukkah. And Hanukkah was a very interesting character. I really liked how Hanukkah's character mostly just talked about something akin to the importance of family. They aren't obviously genuine, like real blood family, but they, being child errors, of course, not having their parents or anything, not knowing who their parents are, of course they have to rely on each other as if they are family. And despite all of the sort of jealousy that she felt towards the other characters who were much stronger than her, much more talented, smarter than her, she believed in that until the very end. She believed that it was her duty as the oldest of them to protect them. And throughout this project, it's like a level, what's the word I'm looking for? It's like a power development program, project, or whatever, that basically they're like cutting their brains, I think, with, and I think it has something to do with like the DNA of Accelerator. I don't remember exactly. I might have to look it up while I'm editing this. But either way, throughout this whole power development project, Hanukkah's power is, her level is actually decreasing, while some of the others in the group are increasing. And someone who is already kind of inept, this just frustrates her to no end, and she feels herself getting angrier and angrier, and she's finding it harder and harder to control her emotions. And this makes sense because a lot of the other characters, their minds are starting to warp a little bit, their personalities are starting to change a little bit. So Kimi pretty much loses her emotions to an extent. She can't really feel anything when something good, like something happy or tragic happens. And Raifu was very interesting one, because Raifu was the cutest, most wholesome thing before she took part in this project. She was, like I said, fascinated with heroes, but it was from a much more wholesome standpoint. She was this little kid that just really appreciated and admired heroes as these people that just simply did good things and protected the weak. She was getting bullied by some boys, and they were trying to, and it was a weird thing, because like this one kid was picking on her because like some about like their taxpayer money. This little kid was talking about the fact that their taxpayer money goes to their orphanages. Like, what is this little kid talking about? This kid doesn't know what he's saying about taxes. Anyways, that wasn't the point. He started bullying her, and then Hanukkah jumped in and helped her, and she admired that so much because it was just like the heroes that she had read about in those, like, they called them magazines. I feel like it was probably manga, but but I'm not exactly sure. They in this translation they call them magazines. And anyways, so Raifu was so messed up during the project. You could see her brain just start to get completely like overwhelmed throughout this project. Her level though increased the most out of all of them. She went from a level like either 0 or 1 or something to either a level 3 or a level 4. I think I want to say level 3, and then she became later a level 4 later on in a part we didn't see. I don't actually remember what level she was when she fought Mikoto. But either way, you can see that this project, even though it did help increase her level substantially, you can see it had a very clear effect on her brain and her personality, and I believe her memories, unless I'm misremembering, ironically. It was my theory that okay, so I guess I'll go ahead and say what happens at the end of the arc for Raifu. So she's like taken in, or like I think put in jail or something or whatever, and she's being interrogated by this guy who's trying to understand the psychology of people that commit crimes. And he started talking about himself to her, about why, and this was actually the guy. Oh, I'll get to, okay, so the guy interrogating her, I think, was the person bullying her. And the person bullying her was like this dude in this Tanuki mask in volume 14 that confronted her. And okay, that's a little bit of a crazy coincidence, but let's move along. Anyways, when he told her why he decided to become a hero and like what about his epiphany about heroes, then she started to cry. And my theory was that she remembered her fascination with heroes before the experiment, before the project that messed with her mind. And so I thought that was pretty nice. So yeah, overall, I just gotta say, I loved Raifu as a character. She was probably either my favorite or second favorite character that was introduced in this arc. To go back to the project, like, and you know, how it affected them, like I was talking about earlier, of course, I already talked about Raifu, and I already talked about how Kimi pretty much lost her emotions. She lost her ability, even though they thought she was a level 0 when she wasn't really a level 0. It was just hard to observe her power, and I'll get into what her power was because it was absolutely insane. I thought it was pretty cool, to be honest. So I mentioned earlier that Hanukkah believed what she did up until the very end, that she, as the oldest, needs to take responsibility for them and protect the younger ones, you know, because they kind of function as a family of sorts. And as they were trying to break out of this facility where the project was being held, the people hunting them down were told that they could quite literally just shoot them and kill them. They were told to kill them. And the reason for their escape was, of course, if you read the arc, because Kimi's power was deemed to be too dangerous and they had to just get rid of her. So once the kids found this out, they tried to escape, and Hanukkah pushed the characters down the stairs so she could buy them time by running into this hallway and pretty much getting herself killed. And you didn't really understand that it was a sacrifice. You actually thought she did that out of jealousy at first, but then it was recontextualized later that, you know, to show she actually did sacrifice herself to buy them time and save them. And the facial expression that she made as she pushed Kimi down the stairs to help her was a conflicting one for Kimi, and one that, you know, was burned into her brain. And it was something that did make her feel something, even though she had pretty much lost her emotions. I guess I should also talk about Tsurigane. I will say Tsurigane's the weirdest one to me, because Tsurigane's personality didn't really change much before nor after the experiment, yet Tsurigane's personality was a little bit different afterwards, like in the present time, than it was in the backstory. And I don't know if I missed anything, but I mean, she wasn't that different, but I thought she was a bit wackier as her, you know, as her older self than her younger self. And her younger self was a lot more serious, I guess, and kind of deadpan to an extent, or maybe a little bit more on the angry side. Either way, though, so basically all of the characters escape except for Hanukkah. Hanukkah was shot and killed, but Surigane was actually there the moment she died. She didn't die immediately after being shot. Her body was just kind of there. So Tsurigane did see her and saw her in her final moments. And here's another thing I think I might have missed, but Tsurigane said that she saw her say something. Hanukkah said something like right before she died, and I don't know if it was ever revealed what she actually said. I don't know if you were just supposed to guess what she said. I have the IQ of like a gerbil, so if someone could explain to me what she did say or what they thought she said, that'd be kind of sick. Thank you. But yeah, so they all escape and they legit set that facility on fire. That was quite beautiful to look at. So let's go back to the current time, and at this point, Uiharu was kidnapped, but Uiharu, with her 10 million IQ, was able to kind of escape, or at least, get outside of that building, all while Saten was pretending to be a guard. Either way, Mikoto, after her fight with Raifu, shows up, and they are now in their final confrontation with Kimi. And, if you've read this, you know about the fight. Again, I think the fight choreography up until the very resolution was really great. I thought it was, again, really well thought out. I always praise Toaru for just using the character's powers in cool, interesting, unique ways that I wouldn't have thought about, and they always kind of surpass my expectations in these fights, especially with Mikoto. Mikoto is always doing something different, and I really enjoy that. Mikoto was actually making clones of Saten and Uiharu. She was making iron clones. She made an iron clone or whatever of herself, I believe, in her fight with Raifu. So I thought that was pretty cool. And she made those, to distract Kimi with, Saten and Uiharu clones. Very epic. And as this confrontation is going down, now I get to talk about Kimi's backstory. So I will say Kimi really grew on me throughout this arc. At first, I wasn't too sure about her. I didn't even mention the dragon up until now. So Kimi has a very suspicious ability. She has this dragon thing that can pretty much turn anything it attacks or whatever, or shines its light or whatever on, into sand. Or was it salt or sand? I don't remember. Salt. It was salt. I know it was salt because it reminded me of some Drakengard and Nier lore. Drakengard and Nier does something very similar, where you if you catch this disease, you're confronted by a god, and you have the option of either becoming a mindless soldier controlled by that god, or you can die immediately and your body turns into a pillar of salt. As I was reading this, I was actually wondering if Kazuma Kamachi was inspired by Drakengard and Nier lore. I don't think he was. I think it was just a coincidence, but that would have been pretty cool if he actually was. Either way, Kimi herself doesn't even quite know why she has that dragon, but she also kind of has this ability to sort of copy another person's ability, because she started using Mikoto's electricity, basically, as she was fighting her. But it's found out in a backstory that Kimi's power is really crazy. She is able to, I guess, spawn a black hole at some random space in the universe, and that's where she gathers her energy from. And the dragon is basically a parasite that draws from this energy from the black hole, and that's how Kimi's able to do what she does. I really liked that. I thought it was sick. It was also noted in the manga that Kimi was considered to be the 9th potential ranked level 5 Esper. Now, when I read that, I was so confused. I was like, what do you mean 9? There's only 7. They were including Takitsubo as the 8th. So Takitsubo was essentially considered to be the 8th potential level 5. I had completely forgotten about that. I thought they were talking about Junko, because in Astral Buddy, I think they actually mention that Junko might have had the potential to become a level 5. Correct me on that if I'm wrong, but I do remember something like that. But no, they were most definitely talking about Takitsubo. I find it interesting that they would have just counted her as the 9th, even though Takitsubo was technically not the 8th yet. Well, I mean, she's still not the 8th. But either way, Kimi's power, I thought Kimi's power was really cool. It was obviously supposed to bear some similarities to Toma and the dragons in his arm that we saw in the Daihase arc. But let's talk a little bit more about Kimi and her backstory. So Kimi, her motive, or what she claims to be her motive, is that she wants to use Uiharu so that she can release all of Academy City's information and technology to the rest of the world. So basically, her idea is that the weak will be able to arm themselves. So basically, Academy City, I believe, is like 20 to 30 years, or it's like 10 to 20, 20 to 30, I don't remember. It's about 20 years technologically ahead of every other country in the world. That's crazy. That's why Academy City is such a threat to the rest of the world. They are so technologically advanced that the whole reason that there is a conflict between magic and science is because of Academy City's technological advancements and how deadly they actually are. Kimi is saying that she wants to give the rest of the world the opportunity to create the stuff for themselves so that the weak can defend themselves. And this is shown in, this is kind of portrayed in a backstory of hers where as she was walking down the street, this, I think it was like a girl, was being assaulted by these random people, and instead of protecting her and beating up those people that were assaulting her, she decided to just give that person a knife. And I really like how this was portrayed. This woman gets that knife and she starts slashing like crazy. She looks crazy in the eyes, and I really liked how that was portrayed. It's very it was a great display of human nature. But I'm going to be real here. I don't think this is a bad motive whatsoever, and I don't even think Kimi is really in the wrong here. I don't think this is morally wrong, this goal. I don't think there's anything wrong with the idea of wanting to arm the weak with the ability to defend themselves. So this really begs the question, should the strong protect the weak, or should you just give the weak the ability to defend themselves? I am quite a fan of this. I really like this motive, and it's a large reason for why I like Kimi. Kimi already has like this really cool design, and she has this really, how can I put it? She has this threatening presence that I really like. Her presence isn't like full of malice, but she's definitely imposing. I just think she's extremely cool, and I like her motive. I like her backstory. Overall, man, I think Kimi's an impressive character. I think Kimi is a solid character in this series. A solid antagonist. I think Railgun has some pretty good antagonists, and Kimi, I think, is up there with them. Honestly, I don't know who I would say my favorite is. I would say, of all of the antagonists in Railgun, Kimi might have my favorite motive. I don't know how I would rank the Railgun villains. I think that'd be kind of interesting. Maybe I could make a video about that. I don't know. But Kimi grew on me so much overall, like throughout this arc. I just liked her more and more with each new chapter. And to talk more about her motive of the idea of arming the weak, this is a common opinion in the world. This is quite frankly why the Second Amendment exists. Americans have the right to bear arms to defend themselves against a tyrannical government. That was the premise of the Second Amendment. So this is the common thing. I find it interesting that the antagonist of this arc holds a fairly common ideal. Now, one thing I kind of didn't like as much about this arc is that they kind of take that back a little bit by saying that it was really just Hanukkah's death that was bothering her, and she never wanted the feeling of being protected by someone else or someone sacrificing themselves for her ever again, which, I mean, I don't dislike that. That's interesting, but I kind of wish she was a little bit more steadfast rather than her whole motive kind of just being derivative of that. Either way, I don't think it changes the fact that Kimi was, to me, a thought-provoking character, and I thought she was a well-written character. I really liked her. So throughout this whole exchange, I just have to reaffirm how much I really enjoyed Kimi and how much I enjoyed the fight choreography between Kimi and Mikoto throughout this whole exchange. But now we get into what is probably my biggest criticism of this arc, and it is the resolution with Uiharu and her awakening, and that being what essentially defeats Kimi. So this is something I'm a bit more mixed on. Part of me feels like it was a bit of a BS way to pretty much win this fight, to end this arc. And I'm wondering if there's gonna be something more important about this later on for Uiharu that would maybe justify it a little bit more. But really, I'm kind of conflicted, because on one hand, the way Uiharu did this, like, kind of makes sense, sort of, and it is a little kind of justifiable, but I'm not really sure. It does theoretically make sense how she did what she did, but I mean, how realistic is that? I guess I thought it was just a bit of a strange way to resolve the fight with Kimi. Now, it in no way, shape, or form ruins everything that has happened before in this arc. I am not a fan of the type of person that discredits everything because they don't like the ending or the resolution. I kind of want to make a video about Attack on Titan and how it really kind of annoyed me that everyone is now trashing on Attack on Titan because they didn't like the last chapter, even though chapters 1 through 138 were phenomenal. So it doesn't really harm my overall opinion of the arc, but I just thought it was a bit strange, and I'm wondering what this is going to mean for the future of Railgun, or for the future of Toaru, because maybe it'll play a bigger part. If it has something to do with that's happened in New Testament, I'm sorry, I haven't read New Testament. But wait, no, it can't. I don't think it can, because New Testament, they're not even in New Testament times right now. So in Railgun, to my knowledge, all takes place in Old Testament Index. So I don't know if that would have anything to do with it. But I want to hear from you guys. What do you think about Uiharu's awakening, and what do you think about the resolution of this whole fight with Uiharu? So I'll say I do like the design of Uiharu's awakening, and I will say I did like the fact that Uiharu kind of got some spotlight throughout this arc. I thought it was a nice change of pace. But either way, I guess I'm just a little conflicted on it. Part of me thinks it's justifiable enough to an extent to where I should give it a pass, and part of me kind of thinks it's a bit of a lame-ish way to end it, but it doesn't change the fact that I thought the fight choreography beforehand was still really great, and I had a lot of fun with the arc all the way through, so it doesn't ruin my opinion of it whatsoever. Again, I'm a big believer that you should not forget the enjoyment that you felt, the joy that you felt in everything leading up to the resolution. And I think that's an important lesson to learn. Like I said with Attack on Titan, so many people now are just pretending as if they're not even Attack on Titan fans anymore. And all just because they didn't like one chapter. And I just think that's shallow. It's not every ending can be like Code Geass. Not every ending or resolution can be this perfect, mind-blowing twist that you're not expecting. I kind of think it's just a bit unhealthy to put so much stock into the final portions of any story or any arc that you're watching or reading. I mean, I just think you will maybe feel a little bit happier or a little bit more content in your life if you just kind of take that to heart. If you don't put too much stock into the ending resolution. There are some cases where I think, yeah, maybe the ending was just a little bit too, I don't know, left too much of a bitter taste. I do understand that endings are important and can leave a bitter taste in your mouth, but all I can say is remember all the good times you had leading up to that point, I guess is what I'm saying. And, I'm not even saying that the ending was really that bad, because I don't think it was particularly bad. I just thought that there could have been another way to resolve that. That's all. But I guess to kind of move on to the epilogue sort of stuff, we, see all the characters together. We get like a conclusion of where they're all at. Kimi pretty much ends up in like what looks like a mental asylum, or like the crazy rooms, So poor Kimi. And she also speaks to like Hanukkah's ghost. So epic. And I already talked about Raifu pretty much. I already discussed her like interrogation with that other guy. I believe Tsurigane was like thrown in prison, and then I think she broke out, and then she met up with, I believe, a New Testament character who I don't know because I haven't read New Testament. I'm sorry, but I liked her design. She looked pretty hot. Then we get to see the four main girls talking at the end, and I believe Kongo shows up as well. And it was just some good wholesome get-togethers, some good wholesome epilogue moments, Kuroko, of course, once again injured. If she's not in a wheelchair, then she's got a cast or something. Poor girl. And that about wraps it up. Yeah, I hope I have the longest video about the Jailbreaker arc out there. Overall, what are my opinions. I loved it. I thought it was a great arc. I really enjoyed it. I thought there was a lot of great things about this arc. I enjoyed a lot of the themes that it discussed. I enjoyed the backstory with the antagonists of this arc. I loved the fight choreography, and I still stand by my opinion that it's the best fight choreography that we have seen in Railgun, in any Railgun arc so far. And I had a great time with it. I had a blast. So where would I rank it amongst other Railgun arcs? So this one's difficult for me to answer because I love all of the Railgun arcs, and I think this could change. I think my answer could change depending on my mood. So I would say my favorite Railgun arc is still probably Daihase. My second favorite, I think, would have to be the Sisters arc. Then third would be really close between Jailbreaker and Dreamranker, which it's funny how their names are kind of similar. If I had to pick one, it's really hard for me to say. There are things I like both of those arcs for really different reasoning. Honestly, I would say they're about tied. Part of me might want to give the edge to Dreamranker, but I mean, on any given day, I could give it to Jailbreaker too. I enjoy both of them a lot. And my least favorite would be Level Upper, but again, I love Level Upper. I think Level Upper is such a solid introduction arc to Railgun, and I think it's a fun, interesting arc. There's nothing wrong with Level Upper. I just had to pick a least favorite, But hey, that's just me. But yeah, tell me what your thoughts are on the Jailbreaker arc. Where do you rank it amongst the other arcs? Tell me anything you want to tell me. Your favorite moments, maybe your least favorite moments, whatever it is. And yeah, I don't have too much else to say. If I do and I forgot, then I'll put it somewhere, maybe on the screen throughout the video, or maybe in the description or comments, or if you want me to clarify something, feel free to ask me. I do love reading the comments, the very few that I get, and it's always fun. It's always fun talking with the people who stop by. And again, if you made it this far, I appreciate you. Love the Toaru community. I really do. I meant when I said at the beginning. And I think that's going to be it for me. I hope you have a nice day, night, week, month, year, decade, life.